Imagine working every day, paying a third of your income in taxes, while the richest people in your country pay nothing. Sounds familiar, right? But here's the thing. When America's income tax was born in 1913, it was designed to do the exact opposite. It was a tax on the wealthy. And for most Americans, it didn't even exist at all. So how did we go from taxing millionaires to burdening the working class? To answer that, let's start at the very beginning. Before 1913, the U.S. federal government raised almost all of its money through tariffs, taxes on imported goods, and excise taxes on items like alcohol and tobacco. Now, tariffs might sound harmless, but they are actually regressive taxes. Whether you were rich or poor, you paid the same price increase on daily goods. In effect, the poor paid a higher percentage of their income to fund the government than the rich did. During the Civil War, the government desperately needed money, so Congress introduced America's first income tax in 1861. It taxed higher incomes at 3% to fund the Union war effort. But by 1872, it was repealed, and for the next 40 years, America's wealthy paid no direct federal tax on their income. Between the end of the Civil War and the early 1900s, America entered what historians call the Gilded Age, a time of rapid industrial growth and extreme wealth. Industrialists like John D. Rockefeller, Andrew Carnegie, and J.P. Morgan built colossal fortunes. They controlled oil, steel, banking, and with it much of the nation's economy and politics. While these men lived in mansions with every imaginable luxury at the time, millions of Americans worked long hours in factories, mines, and railroads for poverty wages. Many of these workers were children. Boys as young as 8 or 9 years old spent 12-hour shifts underground in coal mines, their faces black with soot. Young girls worked long hours in textile mills, their tiny hands ideal for threading dangerous machinery. For these families, child labor wasn't a choice, it was survival. This growing gap between rich and poor led to public outrage. Farmers in rural areas formed populist movements demanding fair wages and prices and an end to railroad monopolies that exploited them. In the cities, a progressive movement emerged. Progressives were reformers, journalists, lawyers, teachers, and politicians who wanted to fix the problems of industrial society. They pushed for safer work conditions, child labor laws, food safety regulations, and fair taxation. At its core, the progressive movement believed government should act to protect ordinary people from the abuses of unrestrained wealth and power. By the early 1900s, the anger at inequality was too strong to ignore, and one of the key demands was an income tax to make the richest Americans finally pay their fair share. The images of exhausted children in mines and sweatshops stirred the conscience of a nation. Reformers saw the excesses of the Gilded Age and asked, who should shoulder the cost of fixing this broken system? At the heart of the progressive era was a bold idea. The government could be a force for good. Activists, labor leaders, and politicians began to call for an income tax, not to punish the wealthy, but to fund schools, infrastructure, and social reforms, and to give children a future beyond factory walls. But the battle was far from easy. Powerful industrialists lobbied hard against it. Congress tried it in 1894. They passed a small income tax targeting the wealthy. But the Supreme Court struck it down just a year later, declaring it unconstitutional. The rich had won, for the moment. Still, the movement didn't die. In fact, it grew louder and louder. Protesters marched, wrote, organized, and in 1913, after decades of struggle, the 16th Amendment was finally ratified. For the first time, the federal government could levy a national income tax, and they promised it would only affect the richest of Americans. It was a moment of triumph for the progressives, a sign that democracy could work, that the powerful could be held accountable. Later that same year, Congress passed an income tax law with rates starting at 1% for incomes over $3,000. That's around $90,000 to $100,000 today. Only about 2 to 3% of Americans paid this tax. It was without question a tax targeting the wealthy. So in 1913, income tax was introduced as a wealth tax to reduce the burden on the working class and fund a growing nation fairly. But today, when billionaires pay nothing and workers pay everything, we have to ask, has the income tax become the exact opposite of what it was meant to be? Let's explore how America's income tax system evolved from a tax on the rich to a tax on you. During World War I, the government needed money fast, so Congress raised income tax rates and broadened the base. Suddenly, more Americans, not just the rich, were paying. By World War II, the tax burden had expanded dramatically. The war effort was expensive, and the government turned to workers to fund it. In 1943, the government made a brilliant move for itself. It invented paycheck withholding. Instead of writing a check at the end of the year, your taxes were now taken out before you ever saw the money. Overnight, tax collection became easier, and the middle class became the government's most reliable source of revenue. Then came inflation. As prices rose, so did wages, but the tax code didn't adjust. This created what economists call bracket creep. People were not getting richer, but they were being taxed as if they were. The income tax, once aimed at the elite, was now draining the middle class. Meanwhile, the wealthy adopted. They hired accountants and lobbyists. They found loopholes. They made the system work for them, and them alone. The result? Working families pay steady taxes from every paycheck. Many billionaires pay nothing. Was this the plan all along? Or did the income tax betray its original purpose? Next time, we'll dig deeper into the loopholes, the offshore accounts, and the billionaires who legally avoid taxes, while teachers, truck drivers, and nurses foot the bill. Because understanding how we got here is the first step in changing it.